Yes, well, you have to check up on where you've got to, don't you? Well, after that, I got to theatre, didn't I? I was doing an awful lot, you know. It was theatre as well as radio, and there was a lot of filming, and there was a lot of television too, and I think I overdid it. In any case, I went into hospital, and this surgeon said, well, rectal trouble always occurs, you know, after this kind of... You're overdoing it. I said, yes, I was overdoing it, really. He said, well, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed at all about the Farmer Giles. I said, well, no. I don't like mentioning it, you know. And he said, no, don't worry about the hemorrhoidals. And we all know about the hemorrhoidals. Now, look here, nobody to be ashamed. Napoleon had piles. I said, did he? Yes, but not the force of Waterloo. Not Monkey's force of Waterloo. And that is the sort of effect. He couldn't. I said, it's funny you should mention that. And I played it. I did. I played Napoleon in the Anouilh production on television of Napoleon. I know it sounds balmy, but I did. So I said to the producer, what made you choose me? It's unusual casting me as Napoleon. And he said, well, I couldn't think who to get. And they said, when in doubt, get someone funny. I thought, commendazione. And it was the Napoleon of the 100 Days after Elba, prior to St. Helena. Helena, isn't it? St. Helena, yes. And I tell the surgeon, I wore this huge stomach because they said, by this time he had carcinoma of the stomach, so you must wear this great pad. They gave me a lot of cotton wool down the front, so this stomach was right out, you see, while I was playing it. And it wasn't properly fixed, and during the performance, it was live. It wasn't pre-filmed. It was live television on BBC Two, and in the middle of it all, this cotton wool went round and round and round until in the end, I'd started with a huge stomach, and I ended up with a vast... And they wouldn't redo it. They said, oh, no, nobody will notice. We're cutting to about there, nobody will notice. And it went through all right. So anyway, I had this operation. And then went into another show. By this time, I'd left frivolous theatre, and I was doing straight work. I was in, again with Maggie, Privately and Public Eye by Peter Schaffer. And the surgeon had said to me, you know, never be at all neglectful, always clean this very thoroughly. And after the show, I was sitting in this dressing room with a sort of plastic pole, and I had this warm water in it, and I lowered myself gingerly onto this pole. And I was sitting there, the show had finished, and everyone had gone. And I was sitting there with this dressing gown enveloped over this pole, and a knock came at the door, and I said, who is it? And this voice said, Noel. And I thought it was someone in the company larking about. And I said, oh, go away. And it opened, and Coward was standing there. And he said, what on earth are you doing? And I said, ah! And I shot up, and the pole went, you know, for a bird. And the dressing gown was soaked. And he said, what on earth are you doing? And I said, well, you see, I had this operation, you know, it's an operation I had. I was anal trouble, and I had to have an operation. And he said, say no more, my dear, say no more. I know all about the horrors of piles. I discussed it at great length in my book, Present Indicative. You read my book, Present Indicative? I said, I didn't have piles. No, I didn't have piles. No, I had papilli. And he said, papilli? My dear, it's an island in the South Seas. Turned out it was right, it is. I got the pronunciation wrong. And we sat there, and he was chatting away. And he was always delightfully encouraging. I mean, he was a wonderfully encouraging man backstage. Always said something which was constructive and really helpful as far as acting was concerned. And we were chatting away. And I said, you know, I thought of you today. It's weird you should come on this particular night, because I thought of you today as I was walking past the National Gallery. You know, that gallery always reminds me of you. And he said, what on earth have I got to do with the National Gallery? And I said, you're lyric. We've seen the National Gallery open, the Houses of Parliament burn, the introduction of income tax, which gave us quite a turn. We've seen the late Prince Consort on the magic lantern screen. What an unsupersedable, wonderfully readable, drinkable, feedable, follow my leadable, this happy, breedable, oh yes, indeedable century this has been. And he said, oh, yes, I wrote it, but I don't remember. You're a better memory of my lyrics than I have, which I was delighted about. And I said, I was talking to George Rose when he was playing the apple cart when you were doing Magnus. And he told me some outrageous stories. I said, I know that's true. I said, what's like check up and find out if they are? And he said, what did he tell you, my dear? I said, well, he said it came on after that night. He'd been to a trattoria and had moule marinière and stunk. I said, he stunk of garlic. But you're unaware of it when you've had it yourself. You know, aware of it. And he approached Noel on the stage for this great scene where he demands his abdication. He says, give me your abdication papers, you see. He's playing Bonerges. And Coward was supposed to produce the papers, but he didn't. And he just backed away, saying, oh, my dear, please, my dear. Dear, don't breathe out
out, you're scorching the furniture polish.
Actually said with a full house there.
You know, we only need a loaf of bread and we can all have a meal.
When he told me that, I said, is it true?
He said, yes, he said it was true.
And I said, of course, he told me he had hysterics.
He said, I don't prove that. We can all do a bit of bad living on stage, especially when it's a long run and getting rather dreary. It's a good thing, but it's no excuse for corpsing. I will not have that.
He was great for him. Absolute professionalism on the stage. And, you know, you had to know the lines, had to flow trippingly on the tongue, and he would not tolerate any kind of incompetence. And when he was doing the Hay Fever production, he told Edith Evans, you know, it's not good enough, Edith, you don't know your lines. Everyone else knows their lines, you don't know yours. And she said, it's ridiculous, no, it's quite ridiculous. I mean, this morning I knew them backwards.
That's how you're saying them now, dear.